If you took 5 Great Walls of China and dropped them into the ocean, would people notice? That's the amount of plastic waste, 14 million tons, that are dumped into our oceans every single year. This plastic isn't just floating on the surface. It's breaking down into microplastics that's ending up in our oceans, our food, and even our bodies. Cleanup efforts worldwide are underway, and they are having difficulty keeping up. See, the challenge is even bigger when you look at Indonesia, an island country that consists of around 17,000 islands, making it nearly impossible to collect all the plastic before it causes irreversible damage. So how do you save Indonesia and the world from drowning in plastic waste? And are there practical solutions that can be used? That's where 7 Clean Seas steps in with their innovative plastic collection technology. This technology is designed to target and collect waste from even the most remote ocean areas, helping to make a significant impact on cleaning up the seas. In this episode, we'll explore the scale of the plastic problem, the power of HIPPO technology, and how 7 Clean Seas is leading the charge in ocean conservation through innovation along with hands-on action. Welcome to the GoodViral podcast, and welcome to the conversation. Mess ups, we can always just pause and go back, so no worries on that too. All right. Well, Levin, thank you for coming and being a part of the GoodViral podcast, and thank you for being part of the conversation. We're really excited to have you guys here. When looking at the world issues, plastics is a big topic, and plastic pollution in our oceans specifically is a really big one. And the United States, we have a lot of plastic, but there's other countries in the world that have a plastic problem. And so you guys work specifically, or at least I saw on your website, is Indonesia and Thailand. Can you tell us a little bit about what is your mission there, and why is it such a big concern compared to a lot of other places in the world when it comes to plastic pollution?
Okay, thank you. Well, 7 Clean Seas, the organization that I'm working right now, originally we founded in 2018. And then our first project is in Indonesia, in Bintan Island to be exact. And the reason why it's starting at that site is because we've seen like really big issues of plastic waste. I mean, as you know, plastic waste pollution is part of like a developed countries problem in particular. So we are looking at mostly like the Southeast Asian countries, and Indonesia especially is also part of it. And Indonesia itself is almost like, I think it was number 2 or number 3 in ranking for a country that has major plastic pollution issues. So that's why we decided to pilot our project in Indonesia.
Wow. So when it comes to these plastics in Indonesia and in Thailand, is it because there's a lot of production of plastics in those areas, or just there's not a lot of trash and recycle programs? Like, why is there a surplus of plastic pollution there?
Good question. As you know that Indonesia, in regards of population, is one of the most high country with a really high population number. And then Indonesia itself as a country, it also, I think it's right now like almost like 17,000 islands. So it's a country with a lot of islands. So you can imagine that. And the distribution of the population is pretty much scarcely overly in the 5 main islands in Indonesia. So this is like 5 main island is the one who's actually people seeing it on the map as like, oh, that is Indonesia. But actually, if we go zoom in into deeper, it's actually like 17,000 islands. So from there, you can imagine that with the populations, the educations about the danger of plastic pollution is not being put out balance everywhere. That's number 1. Number 2, when the focus of the development area is mainly on this like 5 big main island, we can see that even the building, the infrastructure is not going to be well put out everywhere. It's only focusing on this 5 main island. But the problem is because in the other island, people are still living on these small islands. And they don't have the facility, they don't have the infrastructure, they don't even have the right information about the danger of the plastic waste pollution. They just there without any help, without any support. The government has tried their best to overcome these issues, but as you know, solving plastic waste pollution is just not, it's never been like an easy issue. There's got to be like more collaborations with organizations like us, for example, like with Seven Clean Seas. That's why in Seven Clean Seas, we're focusing on an area where we saw that they need help, where we saw like, okay, there's no infrastructure over there. There is a need of infrastructure to be built on that island to solve the issues.
Mm. And can you share with us sort of a story about the impact that you all have made as an organization?
Okay. So in the beginning, in 2018, when we first started our project, we have this like high hopes about the impact that we're going to create it. So Seven Clean Seas, we decided, okay, let's try like a small number first about how many kilos of plastic we can recover from the environment. So we put out like this big slogan about, okay, like 10 million kilos in 2025, without knowing that can we achieve that or not. But in 2024 right now, we have collected like more than like 3 million kilos plastic waste already. So even in the beginning, okay, how about the resources? And how many people can we hire? Because how many people that working in Seven Clean Seas can be translated into the impact of the social and the community impacts that we generated in the project. So we were thinking about, okay, let's put out a number. Let's aim for like 200 employees in 2025. And right now in 2024, from 2018 until 2024, we already have like 106 employees working on the ground. So those are the people that we actually hired from the local communities where we piloted the project, where we initiated the intervention. So we're looking at people who like local communities that in that area, they are facing the problem. They are dealing with a really high numbers of plastic pollution. So we trained those people, and right now the numbers is like 106 employees working on the ground 5 days a week.
Can you tell us just a little bit more about the employees, because that was very interesting to me when I was looking and sort of researching your company a bit. So these people, these are basically people that, like everybody, need employment, and you're able to provide that employment. And of course, providing that employment, can you tell a little bit about what they're doing exactly? Like, so they're directly helping to funnel the plastic into sort of the catching units that you have, or they literally are picking it up? Or can you tell us a little bit about those people and exactly what you're hiring them to do?
Okay. So we always have these 3 big pillars in our organization about the kind of impact that we want to create. The first pillar is like the ocean health. So we build ocean impact projects with the goal to recover and to prevent ocean plastic pollution. And we're focusing on marine protected areas or MPA. The second big pillar is the human health. So we want to improve human health by replacing, for example, one of our pilot project is in an area where the rooftop of the local communities over there, they're still using like a harmful asbestos materials. So we are working in that area. So in order for us to show that, okay, saving the environment, it needs to have some close correlations with the human health aspect of it. So we are working to reduce respiratory issues and also create healthier living environments through all of our projects. But number 3 is the job creations. Like I mentioned earlier, 100% of our collectors are formally employed. They are enrolled in Social Security. They have fair pay, 5-day working weeks, holidays, and more. And what we're trying to do by providing all of this facility to them is, because the type of work that they do every single day, 5 days a week, it's really, really hard, and it's really difficult. So imagine that if for 5 days, they work for 8 hours, they go to a specific site that have many plastic waste. So every single day they go there, they collected the waste, they segregating it, and then they actually sorting it out, and then it goes to our facility, And then in our facility, there is like a bit of productions productions activities where we transform those plastic waste into a sustainability items like a plastic waste roof tiles. I mentioned earlier that we work in an area where many of the local communities still using asbestos roof, right? So the plastic we gathered at that site, at that same site, we collecting it, we clean it, we sorting it out, and then we transform the same material, the same plastic waste from those environment to be a sustainable material that they can use, that the local community can use. So that's
very
basically the cycle that we are at, that our staff, our crew is doing every single day.
Oh, wow.
What I found interesting when you're talking about this cycle and creating products that they can use, so you're taking essentially trash, right, from the ocean,
Yeah.
plastics, and you're transitioning them from, I think you called it end of life machinery on your website, which I think is a really cool way to say that actually. End of life machinery to make things that like building houses. You can make bricks and stuff like that. So could you tell us a
Yeah.
little bit of maybe a story or a testimony of how you've seen this change a community or a family that you've known or was able to meet?
Oh, okay. So this year, there are so many highlights that we achieved as an organization in 7 Clean Seas, because one of the highlight is we finally able to deliver or to renovate 2 houses in the local communities that originally they are still using asbestos roof. And then with the mechanism, with the project activity that I explained earlier, we finally able to transform that, transform their roof, renovating their roof using a plastic waste, plastic roof tile. It's made from an LDPE, so like a plastic bag that you've seen in the environment. That's the roof tiles come from. So every roof tiles consists of like 2 until 2.5 kilos to create it like one roof tile, 40 times 40 centimeters. But here's the story actually. When we try to introduce to the local communities and to explain to them, look, this is what we're trying to do. This is the danger of the plastic waste pollutions, because every single day when our crew is working on the ground, they're not only collecting waste, working on the ground in the same area where you live as a crew actually have a lot of benefit in regards of creating awareness, in regards of like providing education. Why? Because every single day when people see you working on the ground collecting waste, and then people recognize you as part of their community, then they don't have like they're not too ashamed to go to you and asking you questions like, why are you doing this? So that activities become like a really effective engagement. Like someone from local community is now able to tell them the whole story about the danger of asbestos, the danger of plastic waste. One of the family who live in that local community, when we introduced to them about, hey, asbestos is like really is a dangerous material. It can cause you like a really sickness. At first, they don't believe it, but after we try to explain, educate, and in the different activities as well, and the families being part of it, they finally agree to change their asbestos. I mean, we can understand that because they've never seen like a recycled plastic roof tiles before, right? For decades, maybe even for like, yeah, for decades, they've been living in the culture where asbestos roof is cheap and that is the only option for people who live in the struggling community because it's cheap, costly. So when we introduce that look, even the plastic waste material that you see every single day in the environment, we can actually using it and recycle it to be like a sustainable material. It took us for quite a while to convince them about the project. So this family, it has like a little girl. I think her age was like around 8 or 9 years old. And then the question is actually coming more from this little girl comparing to the parents. So
Mm.
the curiosity is actually coming from the younger generation. And then because this house was built near to like a primary school, and then now it's the only house that have like a blue color, because we're using like a blue color LDPE plastic bag. It directly catch your attention, especially kids when they're like running around, like keeping pointing it out. And that become the opportunity when this little girl right now is the one who's telling them the story about the danger of plastic waste pollution and how the plastic waste can actually be transformed or be recycled. I mean, the impact that it generated, like it able to change the understanding from an 8-year-old when they see like a plastic waste, when they're usually just eating ice cream or like eating instant noodle, they're just throwing it out anywhere. So right now we're looking at a different community where this little girl like explaining to people about, okay, my house, the rooftop, that it's being made from LDPE plastic. The color is blue, and then it tells another different story, and it's also resonate to the adult in the same area. So I think that's one of the interesting story as the impact of our project on the ground.
Mhm.
I
That's
just want to
very
give a
interesting.
quick shout out to you guys. I think this is so cool because
Mm.
not only is there a cleanup of, plastic pollution and the large surplus of it, you're then recycling it with local employees that you're able to pay fair wages.
Yeah.
You're able to pay them fair wages. And then you're taking this trash essentially and you're turning it into a practical product that really will change, not only help people live better, but also live healthier. And I think that's so cool that kids are really excited about this. We've interviewed a few other organizations around the world in different things, and
Mm.
they've engaged a lot of the youth to be part of the change. And they really do seem to help spread the initiatives. And I think that's just so interesting. It's like you have this wonderful cycle, not only with product, but with people. And you hire people and you got these kids who will help advocate, and it just creates a really cool spread of your organization and how it can help. And that is just really great. I just want to give like a huge, amazing
Thank
shout
you.
out to you guys. That's amazing.
Mhm. Yeah, I'd like to ask you because what's very interesting about this is it seems like many ways like a sustainable solution that can be duplicated, right? So this is what really caught my attention is that here you're taking local people, you're employing them, you're doing something useful with the plastic materials because everybody in the world, we all know that plastic needs to be dealt with. We all know that it's a problem, and yet really it's not being dealt with properly. So it seems like what you've done is you've created sort of a model where it can actually help the local economy and at the same time create something useful out of it, and at the same time help to clean up our planet, right? The seas and the oceans and the rivers. And so
Mm.
can you talk a little bit about that as far as the future or the sustainability or the possibilities for duplicating this in different communities or different parts of the world?
Mm. I mean, 450 million tons of plastic are produced annually, right? But yet only 9% of all plastic ever produced has been recycled. It means that 91% ends up in the environment or is burned. So imagine like 450 million tons, 91% of it still ends up in the environment. That numbers itself, it's quite scary. If you're thinking that, what if no one is doing anything? What will happen to the world if no one is doing anything? If people just decided, okay, well, it's not our role. I mean, we're not supposed to do anything anyway. I mean, I grew up. I was born in another island in Indonesia. It's a pretty much like an urban city in Java Island. So it's a really city type setting where every high building and everything. And then when I was 7 years old, I think it was like 6 or 7 years old, my parents bring me to Bali. And that is my first time seeing the beach, the environment and everything. I was like, I told my parents, let's live here. Let's not go back to the city anymore. I mean, like any other kids, they saw the beach, they saw the mountains, so they just fell in love with that. 5 years after that, when I was like 12 years old, my family decided to move to that urban type of area into Bali. And then we live not so far from the beach. It's like only 5 minutes with bike. So I grew up from an urban city type of boy into like a really beach rural boy. And I've been living here in Bali almost for 30 years. If you ask me, what is the difference between seeing the beach 30 years before and right now, I can tell you there is like a huge difference. I still remember every day after school when I'm biking to the beach area, the sand is just a sand, like white sands, green and blue corals. Everything is just so pretty. But I also realized something that throughout those years, yes, I start to see like, okay, the same beach that I used to play right now have at least 10 or 15 plastic cups lying everywhere. But as a kid, without any awareness or education, oh yeah, that's normal. Like people throw it out anywhere, and then you grow older with the same thinking. Okay, that's normal. We don't have to do anything. There's got to be some other people who their job is to clean the beach area. But right now, after living here in Bali for more than 30 years, it's a sad thing to see where the same beach where you spend almost your younger years, right now is already polluted with so many plastic waste. Before it was seasonal, but right now it wasn't seasonal anymore. The waste is just there. It's not going anywhere and nobody is doing anything. So before I joined Seven Clean Seas, I work in the different environment project that more related to animal health. But knowing the challenge that we have right now in the plastic waste pollution, there's got to be a way where we can create a long sustainable impact to the environment when it comes to like plastic, how to deal with plastic waste solution. And we in the project department in the Seven Clean Seas, we have this 3 strategic approach, what we call like a three strategic approach: uplift, upscale, and upgrade. Uplift is basically when we try to uplift the communities, where especially in the communities where they don't realize the danger of just letting plastic waste just there, not doing anything. So we always try to uplift the communities, creating awareness, working with the communities. We believe that in order to create a sustainable impact, there's got to be a sustainable solution, and it needs to involve the community. Upgrade, we pretty much talking about the role of technology to be part of the solution. So yes, dealing with education, with communities, creating awareness is important, but without additional resources like technology, it's going to be really hard to have an efficient and effective system, because we have to admit that technology can help us to make the work more efficient and more effective. And number 3 is what we call upscale. Upscale is just to create more jobs. One thing that I realized is because at the beginning, people don't see collecting waste as a job. Therefore, it's like always voluntarily, right? And it's good if it's like voluntarily, but the negative side of a voluntary works, it doesn't create like an obligation on your part that this is what we have to do. So we're always trying to upscale our resources by creating a job where everyone got paid properly fair wages. Everyone gets treated equally. Everyone gets a social security, got an insurance and everything. So we create like an environment, a job where people can feel confidence in order for them to do the work to save the environment. So with this three approach, what we're trying to do is this is what the three key elements to achieve sustainability in 7 Clean Seas. So that's how every time we want to initiate like a new projects in anywhere, this is the three big strategy key elements that needs to be in place before we decide, are we going to do the project in here or not?
Wow. That was amazing.
Yeah, truly.
Demian and I were just like, wow, how do you respond to that? That was fantastic. Thank you. And I think it's a testament to how not only education, but just taking action really can change a whole world, in one's world, really. And education is another piece. I think we're still, even those who are more educated on climate issues, is plastic. What are some things that people aren't really aware of, that the problems plastic creates? Like we've seen the sea turtle with the straw up the nose. We actually interviewed the biologist who took that video, and we know some other things about microplastics. But what are some things about plastics that you guys find in Indonesia and Thailand that perhaps not a lot of people think about?
Well, remember the figures that I mentioned earlier, 450 million tons of plastic are produced annually. From those 450 million tons, 11 until 14 million tons of plastic flow into the ocean every year. And then the sad thing is, not many people know that the plastic that got flow into the ocean every year, it breaking into microplastic. That is impossible to clean once it enter the food chain. So eventually it's reaching our plates. And this is what I believe that everyone needs to be aware of. The one plastic cup that you decide to ignore has the probability of flowing into the oceans, and then it's breaking down into microplastic, and then it enters the food chain and maybe enter into someone's plate. Okay, if that's someone who get the result of just negligence, maybe they have like a health insurance. When they get sick, they can go to the hospital, they can get the proper treatment. But what happens if that type of disease entering someone's plate that is like a really in the rural area where there's no health facility, or maybe they don't have any resources to go to the hospital? It's going to be a totally different story. So I think this is a part of the awareness that we're trying to do in here, that every tiny things just matter. Every single thing that you do for the good of the environment does matter.
Real quick before we jumped on here, I was curious, how much plastic goes into the ocean, and I think I saw on your website, and it might be older information, it was 8 million metric tons, but you're saying 11 million metric tons are going into the ocean every year. Based off the 8 million, I was like, I had to kind of picture how much that is, right? Because you think 8 million tons, that's a weight of plastic. Well, an empty water bottle, how many empty water bottles do you need, right? For example. So I had some fun looking into the math on that. But basically, 8 million metric tons, let's stick with that number for the moment, is dumped into the ocean every year. And if you actually spread out that amount of plastic for those in the world, it's the same amount, around the same amount of land mass as the country Luxembourg. And for people in the United States, if you need a better measurement, that's the state of Rhode Island. And even though these are smaller countries and smaller states, every year compounds. And every year it's an amazing, an infinite amount of microplastics. And what I love about you guys is that your projects just keep scaling. And I think that's amazing. And you kind of go, well, how much scale do you need to do to catch up to catching the state of Rhode Island every year, you know?
Yeah, I want to make a comment because I'm, a lot of these numbers, quite honestly, it's like much of the problem, it seems like, is too big for me to comprehend, and I know that our listeners feel the same way. And I think so. I wanted to sort of, for our listeners, and sort of put this down into terms that sort of make sense to me. So it's almost like basically the problem with plastic pollution is that most of the world, we look at all these benefits that we get from these plastic products and how easy it makes our lives, but then we don't think about what happens actually when we're finished with that product. Whether it's a single use or a multi-use plastic, we take that product, we throw it, but it's basically, essentially, it's not exactly, when we even recycle it and put it into a recycle bin or put it into the normal trash, it doesn't really just end there. It's almost like we're creating this plastic pollution, then we're throwing it in some place in our house, and then all over our house we've got this plastic laying around, and we're just ignoring it and treating like it's not really there. And eventually the place where we live gets uglier and uglier. And then you talk about food. I was just drinking the water, and it actually occurred to me as I was drinking that water, I was like, wow, I wonder if there's any plastic in my water, and maybe that's irrational, but now when I think about going to the supermarket, how much of the plastic that, from the bottle that I decided to buy today because I was thirsty, how much of that plastic is in the food that I'm eating, in the water that I'm drinking, and so really what I think is that the scale of the problem, I mean, when we think about an island or excuse me, or a state or a landmass, it sounds like it's over there somewhere, but the reality is it's not. It's right inside of our own homes. And I think that humanity, it's almost like basically we've created this amazing product, this plastic thing that we can do almost anything with. And yet it's this huge, it's like a monster that we have to fight with, and we don't know really how to deal with it. And so it's almost like the problem is much, much bigger than the solution. So I think what I'm really interested in with what you guys are doing is I'm interested in looking at how can we take these ideas, which I think that you all have I mean, you're going head on, right, directly towards the problem, which is what most people are not doing. Going back to like when I was a kid, thinking about, okay, well, what am I going to do for work? How am I going to make money? How am I going to live in this life? And I think that more and more people are going to have to solve these problems, because these problems are getting more and more urgent. And it's not just the urgency, it's also the idea of making our planet healthier, making it more beautiful for future generations, but also preventing, as you say, preventing illness and just all the various problems that we just don't understand, that are just too big for us to understand. And the problem is the governments are they're not really, even if they might want to do things, they're not working fast enough. They're not, it really takes individuals that, like you guys have done, to look at this and say, hey, if this beautiful place that I used to bicycle to is becoming ugly because of people just not really taking on the problem, and so we're going to do something about it. I think that we need not just one or two people out of every 1,000 to do that. I think that we need most of the people out of every 1,000 people to do that, to look at that and say, hey, look, this is our world, and we can't wait for somebody else to fix the problem. We've got to do it. I don't think the governments are going to get it done. I think it's going to have to be individuals. And it's either support you guys, or everybody needs to jump on. And it seems like right now the best option is to support your organization, to support anybody that's taking on the problem like you guys are.
There's lots of organizations out there that work with plastic issues, but there's a few that I think yours is one of them that has technology and systems in place
that can really scale and inspire and work with so many other areas in the world that could really use your help. So I just want to give an applause to all of you working and creating solutions. And to those who are listening, please go to their website. They'll be in the description wherever you're listening or watching this. Do follow them on social media. It's also going to be listed in the description. And if you're inspired enough to say, I want to be part of this solution, please go and donate or volunteer your time. Spread this message to those so that we can all collectively be part of the solution together. Levin, thank you so much for being part of the conversation and bringing us into your conversation. It's been absolutely inspirational and amazing.
Thank you. I mean, I'm also honored to be able to share our story to you guys, and hopefully to everyone that has the same concern about what's really going on with our world right now. So I think what we're trying to do as an organization is not something, it's not a miracle. It's just that we make a decision to be part of the change. And I believe everyone can also make that decision today. More people is willing to take action. I think the faster we are to reach the goal together, which is what we want to do. We want to have to happen.
Very well said. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Good Viral podcast and being part of the conversation. If you are inspired by this episode, go to our website at goodviral.org, where you can find resources and listings from the episode to continue good efforts.
Like, comment, and share this episode to any or all of your social media channels. It's really easy to take a small action, and maybe you'll inspire a big result.
When good goes viral, the world gets better.